Hi, I'm Dr. Sridhar Kalyanasundram. Welcome to my channel. I would like to thank all of you for subscribing, and I'm very happy that we have crossed 1,000 subscribers recently. I know there are many topics to be addressed which answer queries that parents have. In this video today, I will be discussing on picky eating in children. So it's an important concern that parents have that their child is not eating enough, and what do we need to do about it, and more importantly, how can we avoid reaching that situation in the first place. So I would do a PowerPoint presentation which I'll share, and we will discuss further. If you have any concerns or comments, please mention in the comment section for the video. So coming to the question of what a picky eater is, so you can see in this illustration different types of food aversive behavior. So this little one has shut her eyes as if she doesn't like the very sight of the food. This cute little one is obviously having a perplexed expression on his or her face, and this girl has an obviously seriously aversive response to the food. So we face all these situations when parents try to feed their young ones, and the very important part here is that our response from very early on when we start feeding is very important. So picky eating is also referred to as fussy eating, selective eating, faddy eating, choosy eating. So whatever you call it, it's a complex behavior, and it's ideally a learned behavior that the child learns over time. I would like you to subscribe to the channel when you find time, and also please switch on the notifications as you will be notified of important updates and new videos as I'm releasing it. What do we mean by the traits characterizing picky eating? So we have some behavioral traits that characterize picky eating, and this includes food selectivity. Here we mean the child is avoiding certain types of foods or food groups. So this is very common. For example, a parent may say that the child doesn't eat vegetables, or he doesn't like fruits, or they can say he only likes chips or French fries and so on. Sensory sensitivity is a more complex problem, and this is avoidance of a food based on its sensory properties, or they require the preparation or presentation in a very particular way, so they're very rigid about it. Many times sensory sensitivity happens from negative responses they've had or negative experiences they've had in the initial stages. For example, a premature baby who had an endotracheal tube in the mouth for a long time, or they had repeated episodes of suction, so they start hating touching near the mouth area. A baby who had significant reflux and pain related to the gastroesophageal reflux and the esophagitis from that may have an aversive reflex to even the thought of bringing food to them. So these are things which cause a sensory sensitivity, and to overcome it needs a certain approach. They may have a lack of interest in eating, that is, he eats only small amounts of food, or they have a poor appetite, or they eat slowly. So this is a very important point that parents often worry about. But the main point is that the interest in eating obviously varies in all of us from time to time. There are days when we are distracted with certain activity, when we don't feel hungry at all, and for kids as well it's the same. There are some days when they are keen on eating, some days they don't feel like eating. So the lack of interest is a non-specific thing, and we should recognize and give leeway for that. Parents may feel that a child eats less. So this is a very complex issue because it's relative to the parent's perception of how much the child should eat. If you look at the video I have made on how much to feed the baby in terms of milk, it's clear that we cannot define a certain volume. If a baby is breastfeeding, for example, they decide how much to take, and when they stop, the mother doesn't even know how much the baby is taking. So if a child feels like eating a smaller quantity on a certain day, it's fine. The portion sizes that we define based on comparison to what an adult eats or a younger child eats can vary, and this portion size also depends on a child's own growth potential, how they are growing on their growth chart, and so on. So please be aware of this, that one size doesn't fit all. Even if you have twin babies or if you have siblings of a similar age, don't expect them to eat the same. Also, counting the number of rotis, bread toast or chapatis that the child should eat, or dosai depending on where you come from. So don't expect a certain number to be finished, because the child is not going to understand that. They eat as they should be satisfied. There is also concern of food neophobia, where there is an unwillingness to try new and unfamiliar food. So this is more typical from 9 months to 2 years of age, and this depends on how they found experiences with new foods. So we have to understand that, and obviously if a child is particular to try only certain types of foods, as long as the group includes balanced food, repeating doesn't matter. If the child doesn't need variety, as long as their needs are met for a balanced food with limited variety, that's fine. So is there any impact of picky eating? So in some children, it's possible that it is severe, though in the majority of cases, there is no significant impact, and it's more the parental anxiety that is the concern. So in the extreme cases of picky eating, you might have failure to meet adequate nutritional needs or energy needs, and this could have negative implications on their growth, and certain nutritional deficiencies like iron deficiency, for example, or zinc deficiency, or they could have functional impairments as well as a result of these deficiencies. However, even if the child is not affected by these negative impediments, the parent or caregiver may still be worried about their child's eating behavior. So it's very important to understand that the perception of picky eating is indeed associated with reduced diet variety and nutrient intakes, and if this is significant, it might impact on the child's nutritional status and growth. So one of the important aspects is careful assessment of the situation to avoid overreaction. So when you decide to take your child to the pediatrician, for example, we have to think about the various aspects mentioned here. Infants like a degree of independence, as we all do. So they don't want to be forced to do certain things. They don't want to be given food at particular times of the day when they're not hungry. They don't want to be forced to complete a certain quantity just because their mother or father wants them to finish it. They don't need to eat chapati when they like bread, when both basically have the same ingredients. So parents, out of their concern, may try to force a pattern of eating that does not suit their needs and personality. This is very important. If you watch the video on infant discipline, so we have different types of parenting types, and same way the infant also has different types of eating patterns, and the pattern might change in the same infant from time to time. So we have to understand where the infant or child is coming from and fine tune our approach to that. An infant responsive parenting style is more likely to avoid picky eating behavior. And as I mentioned earlier, majority of the picky eaters are actually created by the parents' anxiety. So suppose you keep forcing a child to eat right from the 4 to 6 month stage when you start complementary feeding, or if the child is gagging and you are ignoring it and going on pushing the food, the child starts getting aversion, and gradually the aversion becomes stronger, and they may start forcibly reacting when you give the food. So this aversion has to be picked up at an early stage, and we have to react. We have to distract the child. We have to bring in alternative options rather than pushing on with our same agenda. Forced feeding is one concept that you should understand. Forced feeding is just for feeding the child when they are not keen to feed. So it doesn't mean you're actually literally pinning the child down and pushing the food down the mouth. I know some parents do that for brushing the teeth or for giving them oral medicines, but in terms of picky eating, when we say don't force feed the child, we don't mean that kind of force feeding. So force feeding means trying to feed the child when he or she is not hungry, trying to make them complete a quantity they don't need. So this is often a cultural thing as well, that we don't like to waste food, and so we have taken a certain amount of food for whatever reason, by whatever estimate we may have, and then we expect that the child should finish that quantity. Trying to force a particular food type, this we mentioned as well. So when you have equally nutritious alternatives that the child is willing to have, you can easily go for that on a consistent basis. So we have trained ourselves to need a good variety of foods. We enjoy eating out, we enjoy having variety, but the child may not need the variety. So if he doesn't need it, as long as the balance is met, you don't need to force them. There have been many studies, and in one of the recent reviews that was published, 14 studies were looking at different aspects of picky eating. The average age ranged from 4 months to 12.7 years, so the parental anxiety doesn't stop even when the child grows up. The prevalence in different studies ranges from 6% to nearly 60%. So this shows that the definition of how you what you want to label as picky eating makes a big difference in terms of prevalence. So if you say 60% are picky eaters, obviously there is some mistake in the way you assess it. And when the criteria that defined picky eating was more stringent, for example, a very picky eater, very choosy most of the time, or definitely fatty, the prevalence was much lower. So it's around 15% or less. In our practice, actually, the number of picky eaters we see for consultations is much higher, and the actual ones will be even less than 10%. So the ones which need investigation or support are very low in numbers. Most of the time, it's the parental approach that leads to this kind of food refusal habits. So we will review a few points as to how you can avoid picky eating. So in this point, I would like to tell you that please look for information before you reach a problem. So many times we seek information only when we hit a hurdle and we are stuck. So don't look for solutions when you have a problem. Try looking for suggestions or advice before a problem happens. So same way, I have posted a lot of videos on different topics like dental hygiene, discipline, and so on. These are meant for parents to be aware of before you reach a stage when discipline becomes hard. So it's much more easy to have a systematic approach to discipline before the child loses track. And the same way, these tips of how to avoid picky eating should ideally be seen before the child reaches the picky eating stage, when actually you need behavior modification for both the parent and the child. So try to practice these things, that you proactively seek information and also share this with your friends so that they may benefit, and advise them to do the same. So parents should focus on a balanced diet more than the exact nature of the food the baby prefers. So be open to trying variations. So as we discussed earlier, if a parent thinks they should eat dosa with chutney, for example, which is a South Indian food, and the child prefers bread toast with peanut butter, it's absolutely fine to give the bread toast. The nutritional value of both items is going to be similar. Avoid over-reliance on foods like potato, which are well tolerated but have low nutritional value. And it's very important to avoid discretionary foods like biscuits, chips, and sweets. These make the child crave for them, and they may prefer them instead of the regular foods. And these are not nutritionally of high value as well. Eating more of these may make them hyperactive, and it may also make them constipated. So juices, even though we sometimes include juices in the 5 portions of fruit a child is supposed to take, juices don't have as much nutritional value. They lack the fiber content. They may lack certain minerals and vitamins that the fruits may have otherwise. So the pulp is a more important part, and juices are sugary, they are a little acidic, so they may not be good for the developing teeth as well. And any empty calories is going to block their appetite, so they are not going to be a happy eater for the subsequent meals. And we should be consistent with this approach as well. We shouldn't favor one sibling to get a certain type of food, and the child who eats well is given the normal food. So sugary drinks are also not good. And even though we say after 1 year you can include sugar, any amount of sugar is not good. So try to avoid it as best as you can, even in the older children. Parents should be aware of the food groups, which food has a good amount of protein, which food has a good amount of iron, and so on. And fish containing foods have DHA and essential fatty acids. Fiber containing food should be importantly included as well. And most of the fruits and vegetables, whole grain bread and so on, have whole grain bread have enough fiber in them. It's also important not to forget about the water intake, and it's a good habit to have water soon after a meal, so that the completion is there. It's important to involve the baby as well. So finger foods are part of the meal, and even though some people believe in full baby-led weaning, it's sometimes practical to do a combination of both baby-led weaning and parent-led weaning. The parent-led weaning should be baby responsive though. So cooked carrot slices, cucumber slices, cheese slices, or age-appropriate finger foods can be used. We should avoid being too rigid. We should encourage experimentation. Of course, a bit of messiness is expected, but that is not a bad thing. And again, we should not force quantity on the child. It's important not to give the same texture. So this is one negative when you keep giving ready-made foods, because they come with the standard texture, so they don't vary at all. When you make homemade food, there is obviously natural flavor, natural texture. It varies from time to time. It doesn't come out the same way every time you make it. So it's very important that you encourage the child to make it this way. Uh, we should start bringing in different textures after 8 months or so, and we should have a combination of both homemade food and ready-made food. Delaying introduction of granular or chopped food beyond 9 months may cause a reluctance to move beyond pureed food. So this is another common problem we face, that the babies don't take granular foods. They insist on taking the pureed food, and if you bring the right consistency at the appropriate stage, this problem shouldn't arise. Once the problem arises, it's a little bit tricky. One technique you may use is to share from the parent's plate or the sibling's plate. There is always a competitive spirit in the children, and having this competition to take the food, or comparison with the other sibling taking from their plate, even if it is a baby's prepared food, you keep it in another person's plate, eat together as a family, and they are tempted to try different flavors at this time. If you give them non-pureed foods, otherwise they may gag, but if you give them with the other kids, they may eat better. Avoid using television or videos to make them, because this becomes a habit. Screen time has to be limited. Meal times are times to interact well with your kids, so try to make it fun. Try to avoid screen time. Avoid compensating with milk or favorite foods if regular options are refused. So uh, don't bring in milk as a substitute. Once a child crosses 1 year of age, you only need about 200 ml of milk twice a day, and any milk during the day is going to reduce your appetite for normal foods. You might give a couple of snacks if the child doesn't have a good meal. You can give yogurt or cheese strings or anything like that, or vegetables as an option, but don't bring in milk in between, as this will encourage the child to keep refusing, and so this pattern will not change. Avoid food as a reward. So sometimes we feel happy, we take food as a reward ourselves, and we extrapolate that and give food as a reward to the child, and this becomes even more dangerous if you're giving sugary foods, juices, and so on. So don't start this habit, and even when they are young, don't give them food as a reward, because this is a culture they learn. Eating together or sharing, as we mentioned, improves their trying new consistencies. One thing we should realize is that when the child is learning to swallow at the 6 month stage solid food, some gagging or coughing is normal. So don't be alarmed that a child gagged a little bit when you're giving the food. And if they cough, that's part of their protective response. They're learning to swallow it properly. So as long as there is no significant choking, you don't need to worry about it. Of course, the texture should be appropriate for the child's age. You shouldn't give nuts. You shouldn't give solid foods that can go into the airway and they can choke. So if you are giving the appropriate texture, you can allow some discomfort for them to learn to do certain things. So don't be quick to attribute likes and dislikes to babies. Most of the babies do eat their food properly, and if they make a funny face, it's part of their learning to like or dislike the food. However, they don't have any strong dislike at this stage, so if you keep persisting, they will learn. And the same applies to adults as well. Unfortunately, we dislike something quickly and we think we shouldn't take it again, but maybe after a few days, if you try it again, you may like it. Have an open mind, and babies do have very open minds, and fortunately for us. So bring it up again. Don't avoid it just because the baby had a funny response in the first couple of times. So keep persisting. That's very important. Tolerance is important as well. That I mean, the parent need not overreact to simple rejection from the child. The most important point is, if the baby is growing well, variation meeting pattern is normal and it is not a concern. So assessing the growth, plotting the child's growth for their expectations. So you know a child is growing on the 10th percentile, they are expected to continue growing on the 10th percentile. If they grow a little bit more, it's fine. But if they don't catch up, it's absolutely fine as well. So 10th percentile onwards is normal. Please refer to my video on growth for you to understand this concept better. So as long as a child is growing, as long as they are active, as long as their development is normal and they are not excessively sleepy or tired during the day, they should be fine. So accept a little bit of food resistance. So when we have a confirmed picky eater, most children need only parental counseling and monitoring as well as support. So as I said, the guidance goes more to the parent than to the child, and it is a parental expectation that is putting pressure on the child. And this is more easily prevented if you realize this from the start. An approach that is less controlling, more infant responsive is ideal. Educating parents early during complementary feeding introduction phase is ideal, and this makes it more of a match and avoids a mismatch in terms of expectation versus reality. So, dear parents, I would like you to think carefully about this. Maybe you made this mistake with your first child. Don't make it again with the second child. And if you have family who is getting babies, let them be involved in this kind of discussion early on before they actually even go into the complementary feeding stage. So picky eating is a problem that we create. The same as the issue with screen time, the same as the issue with discipline issues. So if we have a right mindset from the start and we try to understand these concepts during the early stages of the infancy, it would become much easier. Of course, there is always issues. It's never totally smooth, but you do better. So if the picky eater happens to be growing poorly or we have nutritional concerns, we should consider supplements to improve their iron, zinc, vitamin D and fiber content. We should think carefully before suggesting or taking high energy milks. If it is considered, limit the use, preferably just at bedtime. If you give a high energy milk in the morning, for example, their appetite for the first meal may be reduced. However, you can give it twice a day if the child needs it. And because these milks have regular sugar, dental care is important. So ideally give it and brush the teeth after that. We have milks like Infatrini for under 18 months of age and Pediasure for 1 to 2 years onwards. Both these milks have about 100 calories per 100 ml, and the normal milk that we have is 67 calories per 100 ml. So these milks do give more energy, more protein and other nutrients. For the significant failure to thrive kids, we do have other milks like Nutrini or Febrini, which have they are not milks, they are nutritional supplements which have 150 calories per 100 ml, but they should be taken only with medical advice for the children who definitely are failing to thrive. One important aspect when you give these extra calorie milks for picky eaters is that be sure that the child is definitely affected nutritionally and it is not the parental anxiety issue which I mentioned earlier. And if you do start it, monitor the growth every month or so and cut back to normal milk once the growth is catching up. So you don't want the growth to keep going upwards because, as you know, obesity is a big problem and we shouldn't compound it. So we shouldn't take the lazy route. We should persist with giving them healthy options and use this just as a backup for a period of time. So I hope this is useful. It's quite a tricky topic. It's controversial and you may or may not agree with all my views, but most of the information I've given you is evidence-based, and I hope you will subscribe and share. I would also request you to turn on the notifications by clicking on the bell next to the subscribe so you know when the next video is released or when we plan to do a live session and so on. So thank you very much for watching this. I hope you like it.